So now that the 2018 NFL regular season is over, it is that time to announce my season-ending award winners. Who's the Offensive Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year, Executive of the Year, all of that. Most Valuable Player. Oh, this should be fun. So what I'm going to do is give you a few of my nominees in each category and let you know who I give the award to. And then you, of course, can scream into the ether of the comments of this video and let me know just how truly wrong I am. You enjoy it deep down. You know it. You! All of you. And perhaps it's therapeutic to you. But nonetheless, let's go ahead and get started. Offensive Rookie of the Year. Your nominees are Saquon Barkley, running back, New York Giants. Baker Mayfield, quarterback, Cleveland Browns. Quentin Nelson, offensive guard, Indianapolis Colts. Looking at Saquon Barkley, he appears to have at least silenced a few of the critics, perhaps, a few of the doubters, with the Giants taking him number 2 overall instead of Sam Darnold. All Saquon Barkley did is say, hey, if you're going to take a running back number 2 overall, produce at this level. 5 yards a carry, over 1,300 rushing yards, 11 touchdowns, another, 720-something yards receiving and 4 more touchdowns. That's over 2,000 all-purpose yards as a rookie, 15 touchdowns. Now, while Eli Manning stinks, that offensive line stinks, and the Giants as a team basically stink, you got to give Saquon his due. He produced week in and week out in a not-so-great situation. Baker Mayfield started the season on the sideline holding the clipboard behind Tyrod Taylor for reasons that are known to Hugh Jackson and only the stupidity of the mind of Hugh Jackson. But once Baker Mayfield got into the fold, there was clearly a shift and a difference in the Cleveland Browns. There's no question. Starting with that Thursday night game where he came in, I think wasn't it against the Jets, and led that great second half comeback. Then he takes over as a starter. He's 6-7 as a starter, almost 64% completion percentage. And the big number here, 3,700 passing yards and 27 touchdown passes, which is a rookie record passing, of all people, Peyton freaking Manning. Like, if you're a Browns fan and you were looking for hope, and the ultimate hope is that you would have found your guy at the quarterback position, you have a lot of reason to believe after 2018 that you finally have that dude. And the entire trajectory of the Browns organization has changed significantly just like that, thanks in no small part to Baker Mayfield. And then you've got Quentin Nelson. The Colts traded back from 3 to 6, end up having arguably the best player in the draft fall into their laps, and all he was the best, arguably, rookie interior lineman out of this 2018 draft class. He was voted to the Pro Bowl as a rookie, which is impressive. You're talking about a guy that was part of an offensive line that was dramatically improved in 2018, thanks in no small part to him. Andrew Luck, over the course of 16 starts, was sacked a total of 18 times, a career low for him. So it's rare to see an offensive guard or a lineman put in these rankings, but it feels like based off of impact and meaning to his team, Quentin Nelson certainly belongs. My winner, Baker Mayfield. Look, Saquon Barkley had a fantastic rookie season statistically, and I do not take that away from him. Quentin Nelson had a huge impact on his team. But Baker Mayfield changed an organization. Most touchdown passes by a rookie quarterback. 6-7 record as a starter. Had to overcome the stupidity of Hugh Jackson early on. Saquon Barkley is a stud. Going to be hopefully a multiple-time Pro Bowler. Quentin Nelson, stud, multiple-time Pro Bowler, All-Pro, perhaps someday a Hall of Famer. But they didn't change an organization. Baker Mayfield changed an organization. He's the Rookie of the Year to me, period. Defensive Rookie of the Year, you had some really notable ones this year. Darius Leonard from the Indianapolis Colts, Bradley Chubb from the Denver Broncos, Denzel Ward from the Cleveland Browns, and Derwin James from the Chargers. You had some really solid rookie performances this year, some studly rookie performances. Look at Darius Leonard. He led the league in tackles, 163 of them. A couple of picks, I think it was 4 forced fumbles, a couple of fumble recoveries, 7 sacks. As an inside linebacker, the dude was insane. You can talk about coverage or this or that. Bottom line is the guy was a tackling machine and he made plays all over the damn place. Bradley Chubb, transitioning in terms of scheme and fit, playing there in Denver. 12 sacks as a rookie. And sometimes for edge rushers, especially edge rushers that are kind of changing their position for the NFL, it could take a year, year and a half, maybe two to get up to speed. It didn't take Chubb very long. And when he did get up to speed, he was studly. Absolutely studly. You look at Denzel Ward. A lot of criticism coming from me too, certainly, about the Browns taking him 4th overall over Bradley Chubb. And right now you kind of look at it and you're like, wouldn't have went wrong either way, and that's kind of true. Denzel Ward, 3 picks as a rookie, 11 passes defended. You're talking about a guy that made the Pro Bowl as a rookie. That's no small feat, especially as a corner. And then Derwin James, 105 tackles, 3 interceptions, 3.5 sacks. Like, Derwin James is an alpha dude. You could tell he came to the Chargers and helped change that defense, especially a defense that was without their best player in Joey Bosa for more than half the season. This team finished 12-4 for a reason. Anthony Lynn did a fantastic job as coach. Phillip Rivers had a great borderline MVP caliber type of season. But it's a guy like Derwin James that could do all types of different things on the defensive side of the ball. It made all the difference in the world for that team. But the winner has to be Darius Leonard. He led a Colts defense that was young and not supposed to be very good. He was a statistical machine, and the Colts are in the playoffs. I'm sorry, but to me, when you look at the fact he's the best player in his team's defense, where Derwin James is an alpha dog, along with a Bosa, along with an Ingram, I think that's where the edge has got to go to Darius Leonard. Should have been a Pro Bowler. Comeback player of the year, to me, there's only 2 options because fuck Adrian Peterson. And some of you that are going to sit there and say, how can you say that? You're the same ones that'll sit there and still celebrate a chomo like R. Kelly. I'm not going to celebrate a child abuser like AP, period. You got J.J. Watt. After a couple of seasons that were lost primarily due to injury, he comes back, leads the league in forced fumbles with 16 sacks. J.J. Watt was back, reminding you why he may go down as one of the greatest defensive linemen in NFL history. This was a vintage type of J.J. Watt season. To go with a couple of seasons where he really didn't do anything, he was hurt, missed so much time, and to come right back and basically not really skip a beat, that's impressive. And then you got Andrew Luck completing over 67% of his passes, throwing for almost 4,600 yards, 39 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. There's no question with some of the other things the Colts did that the primary reason they find themselves in the position that they did, a 10-win team this season and in the playoffs, is because of the revitalization, the rebirth, the genesis of Andrew Luck in his arguably best statistical season this year. To me, as great as J.J. Watt's season was, the true comeback player of the year is Andrew Luck because he plays a more important position. I mean, it's just that simple. And you could say for the Texans, yeah, they actually went 11-5, Jeff, and they won the division. That's true. But you could attribute that as much to somebody like a Deshaun Watson coming back as much as you can a J.J. Watt. But Andrew Luck, yeah, that's the comeback player of the year. Defensive player of the year, to me, there are 3 guys. J.J. Watt, like I mentioned, 16 sacks, 7 forced fumbles, led the league in that category. Aaron Donald was stupid freaking ridiculous. 20.5 sacks. As an interior lineman, 20.5 sacks. Again, I'm going to emphasize 20.5 sacks. So he's going up the gut and through teams' buttholes on the offensive line every game to the tune of 20.5 sacks. 25 tackles for loss, led the league. 41 quarterback hits, I'm pretty sure that led the damn league too by a good margin. 4 forced fumbles, a couple of fumble recoveries. Aaron Donald individually is a fucking man. He's a beast. As is Khalil Mack. He was everything the Bears could have envisioned, giving up the 2 first-round picks via trade to get him. 12.5 sacks in his 14 games, 6 forced fumbles, a couple of fumble recoveries, the INT that he took back to the house in week 1 against Green Bay. Khalil Mack was a difference maker. Like, the Bears have some studs on that defense. You've got Eddie Jackson, and Kyle Fuller played like a stud this year. Roquan Smith's going to be a future stud. You look at Akeem Hicks, he is a stud. Eddie Goldman is underrated on the interior of that line. But that's kind of a top 10 type of defense. You bring a Khalil Mack in, that defense is now elite because he elevates everybody around him, helps make everybody better. So it is about more than just pure statistics to me when you're talking about Khalil Mack. And even his statistics were outstanding this year. They just look a little small compared to Aaron Donald. And when you look at Defensive Player of the Year, I'm very certain that Aaron Donald is going to get it again. And Aaron Donald may end up going down in the Reggie White category of best defensive lineman of all time. That's how good, scary, and ridiculous and once in a generation this guy is. But you can call it a homer pick or whatever you want. But to me, the Defensive Player of the Year was Khalil Mack. Because it's not just about him. To me, it's about the impact that he had on the defensive unit. Like Aaron Donald had 20 and a half sacks, and that Rams defense wasn't very good. Flat out. Khalil Mack was a monster, and the Bears defense was a monster. The Bears defense is scaring the pants off of people when you look at the playoffs. So Aaron Donald statistically had the best season by a mile. But for me, the true Defensive Player of the Year, because of his impact, along with his numbers, to me, it's got to be Khalil Mack. Homer pick or not, I don't care. Executive of the Year. Your nominees are Chris Ballard of the Indianapolis Colts, who hired Frank Reich, drafted Quentin Nelson, Braden Smith, Darius Leonard, got a future second-round pick in 2019. Then you look at Ryan Pace and what he did. Hired Matt Nagy, signed Allen Robinson, Taylor Gabriel, Trey Burton, talking about the drafting of Roquan Smith and James Daniels and Anthony Miller and Bilal Nichols. And then to top it all off, the Khalil Mack trade before the start of the season changed everything for this team. Like, I really only brought up Chris Ballard to point out that he did a really good job this year. But to me, when you talk about the slam dunk of slam dunk picks, in terms of the different awards, how could there be any more of a slam dunk than Ryan Pace? When you look at the work he did, trade, free agency, draft, hiring of head coach, all of that, like he checked all the boxes this year. And I've had my criticism of him in the past, but this year I can't say shit. He has proven me wrong, period. It's absolutely freaky what this dude has done. All of that to turn around and help make the Bears a 12-win team, divisional champions, and a real potential force looking ahead to the playoffs. Yeah, the Executive of the Year is Ryan Pace. The Coach of the Year. And there'll probably be some disagreement here. My top four nominees, apologies to Anthony Lynn and Andy Reid. I looked at Pete Carroll of the Seattle Seahawks. This was a team that was supposed to be rebuilding. All they did was finish in the top six in the NFC. They got in the playoffs. That was impressive stuff. Frank Reich of the Colts. His team started off 1-5, but he believed in them. They believed in him, and they end up winning 9 of their last 10 games, go 10-6, and make the playoffs, and now they're a little bit of a scary team. Talk about Bill O'Brien with the Houston Texans. Look, I've had my things to say about him negatively in the past, but Bill O'Brien took a team from 4 wins to 11. That deserves some type of recognition. That deserves some type of praise, especially when you talk about the fact that this team started off the season 0-3, and then to finish the way that they did. You can talk about players, and obviously that has a lot to do with the players, but that has to be a reflection of the coaching as well. And then, of course, I look at Matt Nagy. 12-4 the Bears were in his first year at the helm. You could see this guy was coaching. You could see the impact of his coaching, specifically on the offensive play calling. NFC North champs, number 3 seed, and a real possible force on that side of the house in the playoffs. There's some really good candidates here. But for my money, when you look at situation and when you look at getting the most out of the least and the best pure coaching job, I don't think that belongs to Matt Nagy. Ryan Pace did so much as executive that it kind of mitigates some of the impact of Nagy at least a little bit. It's not to take away from him, but I just don't feel like he was the best coach this year. To me, it comes down to Pete Carroll and Frank Reich. And it's crazy with Pete Carroll. We were assuming this was a rebuilding year. They were going to be on a downward spiral, and he was going to be out after this year. And now he just got a contract extension after leading the Seahawks to the playoffs in a 5 seed. Like, that's fucking amazing. But to me, it's Frank Reich. You didn't know what you were getting out of Andrew Luck. A really young team that nobody really had high aspirations for at all. And all he did was coach him the hell up and got him into the playoffs, including that Week 17 victory on the road against Tennessee, a win and you're in type of scenario. His team won 9 of their 10 last 10 games. To me, I'm sorry, but the pure coach of the year is Frank Reich. And you're going to hear the people talk about, well, against Houston, if he would have sat there and played for the Titans, da-da-da-da-da-da. You could make that argument, but you could also make the argument that the team played better later on in the season because he showed that faith in them, that aggressiveness, the willingness to believe in them, and they rallied around that and started to figure it out. So apologies to Pete Carroll and Matt Nagy and Bill O'Brien, and yes, even guys like Anthony Lynn and Andy Reid. But to me, the best coach of the year was Frank Reich. And then we get to the most valuable player award. Is it Drew Brees, where it's as much about career accomplishment and lifetime achievement as it is statistical performance this year? Sure, he completed over 74% of his passes, just shade under 4,000 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, and only 5 INTs. The Saints finished with the best record in the league, and that matters. You know, sometimes it's like the Heisman, it feels like, for the MVP award. When in doubt, they'll default to a quarterback, and typically they'll default to the quarterback on the best team in the league. So that puts him in the running. You've got Andrew Luck, again, as I mentioned, almost 4,600 passing yards. The 39 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, leading the Colts to the playoffs. I'll throw Phillip Rivers in there. 68% completion percentage, 4,300 passing yards, 32 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. The Chargers finished 12-4. In most of the other divisions in football, they would have been divisional champs, potentially playing for some type of home field advantage in the playoffs, if not all the way through, at least getting a first-round bye. But instead, because they played in the same division as Kansas City, they got stuck playing in the wild card round on the road. And then, of course, you got Patrick Mahomes. What more could I say about the Magic, man? 66% completion percentage, over 5,000 yards passing, 50 touchdown passes. This all, mind you, in his first full year as a starter. And yes, he's got talent around him with Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. But this guy was a freaking force, man. The Chiefs end up with the number 1 overall seed, and a lot of Chiefs fans who for years were making excuses for Alex Smith now are saying, Alex who? Exactly, people. Exactly. I could go a lot of ways with my MVP vote. There is a bit of a lifetime achievement thing with Drew Brees, and he was the guy on the best team in the league. I look at Phillip Rivers as kind of like a respect thing, and like, hey, 12-4 is 12-4. And he doesn't nearly have the overall offensive talent around him you could argue of maybe the Kansas City Chiefs do. Andrew Luck. I mean, to me, he's got as strong of a case as anybody when you talk about true value to his team. Look at the season Eric freaking Ebron had of all damn people. That has a lot to do with Andrew Luck. There's no question. But at some point in time, team record statistical studliness has to count for something. And as much as I want to give the MVP award to a Drew Brees or an Andrew Luck, I've got to give it to Patrick Mahomes. The dude threw for over 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, and his team finished with the number 1 overall seed in the AFC fucking playoffs. The road to the Super Bowl goes through Kansas City on the AFC side of things this year. Patrick Mahomes was a beast, a freak, and a force of nature. And you could say, even as good as this infrastructure of the Chiefs already was, it was a whole level different between an Alex Smith, solid guy, versus Patrick Mahomes, stud and future long-term superstar in the league. And that's why he is my 2018 NFL Most Valuable Player. So, like I said, those are my choices, my award winners from this 2018 NFL season. You are welcome to opine about them, bitch about them, whine and complain about them in the comment section below. Hopefully you'll enjoy and have a good time with it.